Hello and welcome to Geek First Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more. I'm your host, the Adam Hardcaster. I'm back, Dylan Musk, and I have with me the Kombat Kirklin Patzer. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very, very good. I've missed you a lot, so I can't wait to sit down and
Oh,
talk to you on SideQuest.
I missed you guys too. I missed everyone. I mean, I was still bumping around the Discord, so I feel like I still was interacting with the community and such.
Missed your
But
face.
yes, my face has been absent. Just my little frog picture on Discord. So
Yeah.
it is good to be back, and I'm excited to do this episode with you because there's really not much going on in the gaming world right now. I feel like it's that very much that calm before the storm because, this week is Summer Game Fest, Xbox Showcase, Ubisoft, and then PlayStation's already done their thing. And I feel like when that stuff's happening, maybe sometimes there's like leaks and rumors and whatever, things that are coming out, but often it is this where it's just there's very little news. People are just waiting for these things to come. So we're just going to have some fun shooting the shit, talking about some of the games we've been playing. And I have a very interesting article that we'll go through and just a couple other things. But thank you for joining me here, Kirkland. Now, I got to get back in the swing of things. What do I need to shout out? Patreon, great place to go to get episodes early and ad-free. You can also get episodes, straight into your RSS feed, so you can have a special little feed there so you don't have to listen through Patreon. And right now, we are trying to hit a goal of 50 patrons by the end of July. How many days is there in July?
31st. July 31st.
Yeah, there you go. So July 31st. We've got a couple, but we have a long way to go, so we need your help, everyone. I don't know. Maybe people are waiting until like the bitter end. I feel like people often do that. We put a lot of time on this goal, but still, I'd love to see some more people early on. We got a couple people, and I thank you very much. But yeah, keep it coming because then you can get a bunch of episodes that we will not make otherwise, including top 15 games of all time ranking from the four of us, which will be very exciting. Nintendo Cinematic Universe episode. Those are the kind of video game focused ones. What else? Join the Discord. Discord's always a good place to hang out with the community. Leave a review. That would help out the show a lot, especially on that SideQuest specific feed. I know a lot of you listen on the Geek First main feed, but it helps if you can go over there quickly and drop a review on the SideQuest feed. And geez, I guess there's a ton of things to show this week because Kirkland, we didn't even really need to do this episode because we have Summer Game Fest happening on Thursday. We'll be covering that the night of. Sunday is the Xbox Showcase. We'll be covering that at some point. And then Monday is Ubisoft and Capcom. I don't know how much Capcom's really going to show other than like Street Fighter, so I don't know how exciting that will be for us over here, but we'll cover a collection of that on next week. So a lot of side quests, a lot of gaming stuff. What else is going on this week, Kirkland? You're in the loop better than me, so is there any other stuff to shout out here?
We just did our big Spider-Verse review
Yes.
on the main GV feed. That was lots and lots of fun. That was my most anticipated movie of the year, and minor spoiler, it completely met my expectations. So I'm very, very happy with that. I'm like been riding a high since that movie. I can't wait to go see it again.
How long was the review? Like a good two and a half kind of thing, or?
Yeah, I think it was longer than the movie. I think the movie's 2:15,
Love that.
and yeah, I think we either went around that or it's kind of a blur because it was my turn to edit that episode, and I major had issues with my PC, just like the rendering of it.
Oh, no.
Luckily, I had the next day off work, but it like I don't think I finished it till like 2:30 in the morning or something because it was a late one. So unfortunately, like my sense of time was just so warped from that evening. I have no idea when the movie ended,
like
when the review started.
Review because of that.
Yeah, exactly. But no, yeah, that's the only thing in my head right now to shout it. I was like really sick over the weekend. I think I had COVID last week. It was just
God.
really
Wow.
really ongoing. I've had this like just brain fog ever since, which I never got tested, but it reminded me of what I got or like how I felt the first time I had COVID. So that's what really made me and it was like a week long. That's really was like okay, normally a cold just a few days. So kind of a little bit out of it. So I'm definitely excited to be here on just a little bit more chill episode to welcome you back to the continent.
Well, we'll talk about the things that I've been playing, but I mean, I'm guessing if you were sick for the last few days and you probably were staying at home, hoping and guessing you played some video games. But I want to first ask you this because a few weeks ago, when it was you and Taylor on SideQuest here, and you mentioned that you were jumping into Dark Souls. So I'm curious how that journey has been going. Give me all the details. I want to hear about it.
So quick little backstory. I've dabbled a little bit of Dark Souls like up until like that episode was when I was kind of saying I'm like fully diving in. I just like a lot of my friends had played it growing up and saying that like, oh my god, this is the best game of all time, and like just hearing that like from so many different people. It's like, hey, I gotta jump in on this and find out what this is. I feel like it kind of hurt the initial experience because I like all I had ever heard was this is the greatest game of all time. All RPGs should be like Dark Souls. That's just like what I heard from my Souls friends, and it like. I think if I had gotten into it completely blind, I probably would have had that experience, especially got into it like a little bit younger. But I like jumped in. I was on a Discord call too. Shouts out to Quinn. He was the one that got me on it. And like I was like, yeah, he was guiding me through it. And you've played Dark Souls. Yeah, you played all of them. Or maybe not two. Maybe not two.
I've not played Demon Souls, but then I've dabbled in all of them after that. So I've played, I guess, a lot of them, but I've only ever beaten Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring. But then after that, Dark Souls 1, like the original one, is the one I've played the most, but I still haven't beaten it. I have like maybe 40, 50 hours in it, but I'm curious. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a certain section where I was like, this is awful game design. I hate this, and I'm done with this game.
Blighttown, is that it?
No, it's a bit further than that. Also, the Crystal Caves is where I got to, and I was like, this is some of the worst video gaming I've ever had in my entire life.
Not there yet.
Out of here. So I'm sure there's probably other stuff because it's not completely linear. You can probably go elsewhere. But that's when I hung my cap and I said a bit adieu to that one. I'll go back to it someday perhaps. But where are you at right now?
Yeah, so I'm dealing with Blighttown right now. I've kind of hung up my controller for a little bit. I was getting so frustrated in that area, and again, this is another one that my friends had like prepped me for. They're like, oh yeah, no, Blighttown, like fuck Blighttown. Another good friend of mine, he is such a hardcore Souls fan. Like he just goes through these games like all the time. Like if he beats Dark Souls 3, he'll just like plug it back in again, like try a new build. Like he just loves Dark Souls 3. I think that's the number one on his list, even above Elden Ring. But
I agree
no, he constantly was saying like, yeah, no, I love Dark Souls 1, but fuck Blighttown. I hate Blighttown so much, and I can kind of agree with that now. But getting back to my quick little history lesson, my first time playing Dark Souls, I was on a Discord call with my friend Quinn, and like the Asylum Demon, like the first like prepping boss. It's like a tutorial level, but still, it's your first boss that you face. He was just like, yeah, no, you got to kill this guy. Like he totally was like trolling me in that sense of telling me that like that is the only way to get past it. And I'm like, this is fucking Dark Souls. Are you kidding me? I have a broken sword and I have to take on this Asylum Demon. Like this doesn't make any sense. And then of course, after like 8 deaths, I finally realized there's just a gate to my left, and he was just kind of pushing that like that is such a beauty of those games is like just adventuring and going on, like not really looking for quest markers. He tried to tell me to like stay away from guides as much as I could. I feel like it gets to an extent that like because the game is so focused on the combat, you kind of have to know like where to min-max in your particular skills, because I was just like putting stats in random categories, and it just wasn't really making the experience enjoyable at all. So like my first initial, it's like, okay, yeah, I died many times and I didn't really have fun with it. And I feel like I barely even got like to like Lordran's like the first place that you go to, and I feel like I got like, I don't know, an hour in max on that first initial, and yeah, just kind of put it away. So not like a super great first experience. And then every once in a while I feel like I would just like plug it back in and then just get marked and slowly inch my way forward. But yeah, no, like didn't really get too far from that. But then yeah, I just really wanted to jump in there, and I felt like I had that eureka moment where I just figured out like the game. I don't know. I clearly like I'm still struggling through Blighttown, but like I got to Blighttown. Like that's a huge deal for me on that session of playing. It wasn't just one session, but like coming back to it quite often. I was having lots of fun of just not dying on every single boss, or no, sorry, on every little enemy, or like just complaining about the game because like this doesn't make any sense. But like once you really figure it out, like it does make sense. Like you can really just learn the patterns, and that makes it so rewarding to get past those areas. Like the first time that I defeated those the gargoyles, like the two like the first time that you're fighting like the two bosses, that like I felt like I won the lottery. Like I like from the first time that I had faced them, just getting like instant murked, to afterwards just having a blast of just ringing that first bell of awakening. Like it was just such a gratifying moment. And yeah, although I haven't made it through the whole game, it's really just it showed me the light that I can actually do it. I can say one day I will actually get through Dark Souls. And yeah, and then hopefully just keep moving on in the series. A lot of people told me to stay away from Dark Souls 2. It sounded like they kind of introduced some weird things where like the iframe was like a part of a skill that you would like upgrade or something. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't just
there's a
yeah.
lot of weird mechanics in that game. Even like the way health and healing works is quite a bit different. Whereas like Dark Souls 1, like that healing system is like perfect, and there's really no
Mm,
reason for them to go do some weird thing, but they did anyway. And then I think a lot of people don't like Dark Souls 2 as much because of just the whole world isn't connected. You like fast traveled like different hubs, and you like go
mm,
through maybe a more linear section, and you go through like multiple of those. And I think you could maybe do those in different orders, but I think that's one of the things that Dark Souls 1 is still the best in the whole series, is that interconnected world and that feeling of
yeah.
going through like hours and hours of gameplay and then like looping back to an area you've already been to, and shortcuts open up in often very creative ways where I think they just result to like doors and like elevators a bit too much in later games. Obviously, there's a lot of that in Dark Souls 1, but I think the later games are a bit more telegraphed in terms of you aren't as surprised as often with shortcuts and things like that. And so I think that's why a lot of people maybe bounce off Dark Souls 2, is just that world isn't quite as captivating.
Yeah.
But that's also something that I think in some ways could be a really good thing, is to have a more linear experience. Because I remember the first time I played Dark Souls, I got to I guess Firelink Shrine, and that you can like either go down the hill and fight
Mhm.
those skeletons and like go through that cave, or where you're supposed to go, just like up the hill and like through the sewer thing, fight that a couple rats, and then you're up there and fighting. I forget the names of all these creatures, but like that's definitely the way you're supposed to go. And I think I just went down to those skeletons. I was just getting bodied because it's kind of supposed to be a higher level before you go there, and then I bounced off. So it's good that you have a friend going through it with you and giving you tips and tricks, because I felt that too. And then when I finally did play it later on, I think this was actually after I'd played Dark Souls 3. I remember that Saris was helping me through it at one point. And like even though I'd played Dark Souls 3, I still like did not understand how all the like upgrading weapons and stuff like that worked. And so
Yeah.
I think I just had not upgraded anything, or the weapon I was using was not very good. I remember he was over my shoulder one day helping me, and he's like, "Oh yeah, upgrade this weapon." I had like a bunch of the shards, whatever they are, because I just had been saving them. But then I like was way too powerful, and I was fighting Sif the dog, and I think I killed him in like
Oh yeah.
3 hits.
Oh my god.
And so it's like I don't even feel like I've ever actually experienced that boss fight. I never had to learn it just because I was so overpowered. So obviously the game is like you can break it in certain ways. It is a very bizarre game in that there's just so little guidance in it, and it
Yeah.
makes it really hard. That's why I do love the idea of playing through it with alongside a friend. And
Yeah.
that's Dark Souls 3. That was a great way to play that game. I think Elden Ring is finally the exception to that, because it's an open world game, and if something's too difficult or you're struggling with it, then you can go to a million other places, and that's why that game becomes a lot more accessible in a lot of ways, even though there's some content that's probably harder than anything in any of the other
Yeah.
games. So it is really cool
Nice.
to see how that series and the sub series have evolved over time.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited. Like even if I really struggle through Dark Souls, I'm definitely gonna plug in Dark Souls 3 if I just feel like that's such a well regarded game, just across like a
Yeah,
lot of different players.
I love that
I
game
was
so
I was
much.
for-
It's so good.
I was fortunate enough. One of my old coworkers, she had like 2 copies of it on PS4, so she just gave me one. It was like, okay,
Nice.
nice, that's awesome. I was even saying, I'm like, I'm not really like a Dark Souls player. She's like, take it, you got to play this game. It's so good. So yeah, so yeah, I can't wait to do that. And then eventually, make my way to Elden Ring.
Someday.
Yeah, someday.
But I mean, so you mentioned Blight Town. You're hanging up the controller. What does that really mean though? Like, are you actually gonna put
I'm
on the break for a couple weeks? Is it just
it.
like a couple days and you're coming back to it? Like, 'cause
I
I don't know, man. If you leave it for too long, then you're gonna
it's
pull
yeah.
a Dylan, and then you'll never come back to it. So
It's true. I honestly could see myself like waiting and then going back to it, but then just like making a new character, which is such a Kirkland thing to do. Like I always will like pause the game for so long and then
yeah,
come back to it. It's like, well, I want to restart. But fortunately, in a game like Dark Souls,
it
yeah,
actually
although
works well.
it kind of took me hours to get to where I was, but I'll also like I have the skills now, like because it's not so much like I have to grind just to be able to beat someone. Like no, like
Hmm.
I can get to a certain portion probably without even dying now, whereas before it took me like
Definitely.
tons of deaths. So I think a game like that actually really rewards like replaying and just getting better at
Yeah,
the
you can
game
like
itself. But
optimize your build,
yeah,
and I mean, on
exactly.
Dark Souls 3, like I remember when I beat the game. And I was just loving it so much that I like immediately did a new game plus, and it was really fun to like. I didn't finish the game again, but it was really fun to like speed run to a certain boss. 'Cause I knew the
Yeah.
exact path. I knew which enemies I could skip. I knew where the bonfires are and stuff like that. So I actually think that could work well for
Hmm.
you if you do decide to hang it up. But yeah, Blighttown. I feel like for me, Blighttown ended up being a bit better than my expectations just because of all hearing the rumors, hearing people shit on it or just hate it for years and years, and I was like, okay, it wasn't quite as bad as I was expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Crystal Caves is my least favorite area in the game for sure.
Can't wait to find it. Well, like another reason too why I kind of benched it was, I mean, A, I was just getting frustrated, but also B, I had seen I think it was on like one of the monthly games, can't for PlayStation Plus. I can't remember if it was last month or the month prior, but Neo 2. I'm like, I feel like the only person that talks about Neo. I
Yes,
love
you
that
are
game
pretty
so much. And then I saw Neo 2 and I was like, oh man, like I've never actually made it through Neo. Like I should. It's similar type of game of the Souls. Like it follows that pattern of just dying a lot, and like the whole bonfire system is basically the exact same, where it respawns the enemies and everything like that. So I really just, I don't know, I wanted to plug it back in, and I had it on Steam, but it's also just a game that I have on PlayStation. It must have been again another one of those monthly free games. So plugged it on there, started a new save, and same thing that happened with me with Dark Souls. I just like was flying. Well, Dark Souls I wasn't flying, but this time around on Neo, I was like actually flying through the game. I was just zooming past bosses that I never beat before, and it took me like maybe one or two tries. I was just, again, it's probably because I had that eureka moment in Dark Souls, and because it is so translatable of just being patient with the enemies, kind of learning their rhythms, yeah, just what they do. Yeah, thank you. But this time around, on my first playthrough, I went like a sword route. I think I went sword and dual swords. In that game, you choose two different types of weapons. This time I'm going bow staff, so like a spear, and I don't even think I've used a second weapon actually. I'm like only using spear, and it's making it so much easier because I like with the spear you just have a lot of range. You can really poke down your enemies. So I really just like maximizing that distancing, so you can like really dodge a lot of in that game. There's human enemies as well as like giant demon type things. So for human enemies, like I just outrange like every single one of them, and I've just really like got my play style down. And yeah, I've been having so much fun with that game again. It's really reminded me of just like how I fell in love with it in the first place, but the only thing that's different this time is I'm actually like successful and like able to just fly through levels, really like maybe one death if that. I would say the game is like significantly easier than Dark Souls because it like there is levels. Like you'll go on to a level and then it's a little bit more linear in that sense, as opposed to just having an open canvas or a blank open canvas. And there's a couple different systems that make the game easier. One being this like spear blade where you don't die, your health bar gets replaced by like a meter that like goes down, and then if you kill enemies it like will kind of recharge. So you can just like really destroy things. You can still get one shot for sure, but as opposed to dying, like you'll just lose the power and then your health bar will come back. It can definitely be abusable. I've heard that the game really like turns into what the game is in like New Game Plus, probably similar to, I don't know how Dark Souls is. I've never really reached there. But like that's where you really have to min-max like everything. There's like a whole blacksmithing thing that I don't even touch because like every time I've Googled it, they're just like, yeah, don't even worry about this till you beat the game. Like just go in there, explore, find what weapons you like, and then once you do like the New Game Plus, there's a respec as well that you can do, so you're not just like wasting your abilities, which is nice. So yeah, I've just like been dabbling with a couple things here and there, but mostly just sticking to the spear. And just yeah, like really loving that game. I'm excited to go into Neo 2 because in that one they've changed quite a few things. The core mechanics are still the same. The thing that makes Neo so different from the other Souls-like games, other than like the spirits and the levels like I already mentioned, is actually like the combat system. It has a high, medium, and low stance, and you can like combo them to do like different combos, and it's just so, pardon me, satisfying to just combo different strings of attacks together and just like completely outplaying someone by like abusing their low stance with like a medium stance or something. And yeah, I've just been having so much fun with that. And that's another reason why I've kind of just parked Blighttown, because I'm having like a lot of fun with Nioh right
Yeah.
now. So I am progressing it pretty good. Like I do think I'm actually gonna roll credits on it, which is really, really good. I feel like the only games I've done that recently have been arcane titles.
No, you're the king of rolling credits now. Look at you go,
Yeah,
man.
this year, man, whole new guy. So yeah, I'm excited to roll credits on that one. I don't know how far I'll go into like a new game plus experience, because I'll probably just want to plug into Nioh 2, and I don't know. It's I don't want to just beat my head against the wall with how hard the game can actually get in the new game plus, but it can also be really satisfying because you are a lot stronger. But everything else is a lot stronger and meaner as well. But yeah, highly recommend Nioh to a lot of people out there, that because I just think it's kind of gone under the radar a little bit. It definitely has its like community, but I just don't hear that game played enough, and I really love it.
Yeah, I feel like just Dark Souls just sucks up all the oxygen in the room. I feel like when it comes to
Yeah.
other games that are similar to it or inspired by it, some of them do break through in some ways, but like I don't know, they do not reach the Sekiro or Elden
Yeah.
Ring or Dark Souls level of just hype. And yeah, like I guess people playing those games for years and years and years. I feel like Nioh has not seemed like one of those games, although I'm sure there's
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of diehard fans that are playing it endlessly over and over again.
No, exactly. It's hard to beat the OG, right? And like
Exactly.
I'm not saying it'll ever reach that level. It's just, shine a little bit of love to the Nioh community. I don't think we're getting a third game. I don't know sales wise how that second one did. I was even surprised
Yeah.
that it got a second one, honestly. In that one, I was mentioning the first game, you have like the spirit weapon, which you have like the spirits that you collect, and then they go into your weapon. That's what gives you that mode. In the second one, you just turn into like a demon, like with these like superpowers. So it replaces that system, but it's pretty badass. I was dabbling a little bit in the there's like a tutorial area that you can just mess around with different weapons and things to just get a feel before you choose your weapons to on the playthrough. But by choosing, like you can pick up weapons at any point in time, which is really nice.
Yeah, I was just looking up because I couldn't remember who develops Nioh, and it's Team Ninja, which is tricky because Team Ninja definitely has multiple teams. Because if you just look at how much stuff they release, like it's an insane amount. Like in 2017, they released 4 games, so obviously that's more
Yeah.
than one, developer under that umbrella. But I think looking at Nioh is 2017, Nioh 2 2020. And then I'm guessing Wolong Fallen Dynasty, which came out earlier this year, it's actually on Game Pass and all that. I have to assume that's the same team because I know it's a very similar type of gameplay.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen anything about that one?
I've never even heard of that. No.
Yeah, you should look into it. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
if you could run it on your PC, and I don't even know if it's on PC Game Pass, but I know it definitely popped up on Series X. And I didn't download it yet just because I wasn't really in the mood for a Souls-like game. But that must be like the follow-up to Nioh.
Okay.
I'm guessing it's not the same world, but I don't
Yeah.
know. I guess that's kind of the Nioh 3, and I don't know. I don't know if you'll get a Nioh 3 at this point if they switched over to a different new IP that actually has a very similar look and style to it. Maybe they're just trying something different for marketing purposes or something like that.
I think I'm like personally I'm completely fine with that. My biggest takeaway for Nioh is the combat. So if they just I don't know, take that and
I've heard
maybe
great things
improve
about
it a little
Wolong
bit
as well. Like everyone, people who are really into that kind of game were like, "Oh yeah, this is fantastic! Like,
Nice.
it's exactly what you want from like a Souls-like game." So yeah,
Good to hear. Yeah, the Nioh story is so forgettable. Like that's one where you just skip like every cutscene. Like it doesn't make any sense as well. Like the opening, it's like okay, yeah, this is just how we get into this situation to fight demons, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Anything else you been playing you want to shout out?
Yeah, I've been as my name. I don't know if you caught that. Combat with the K. I've been playing quite a bit of Mortal Kombat actually. Mortal Kombat 11. I got really
I heard you
hyped
and
after
Taylor
the
praising Mortal Kombat 1, I guess is what it's called, right?
is the new one, yeah. And there was like a little bit of well, I was a little bit confused when we were talking about that because we're just saying how it's like a reboot for the series, like really cool that it's doing this, but like when I like was kind of thinking about it and looking into it, it's like no, this is like it is a reboot, but it's still canonically the next game after 11. After that was a weird way to say that. After 11, because in 11 the main story they actually like reset the storyline. So
Okay, that's
so
fun. That's
yeah,
cheeky, but I like it.
yeah. So the main character, which is typically like Liu Kang, he's like the Jet Li or Bruce Lee. I'm confused on my martial artist. Bruce Lee, like inspired character. He's the one that like shoots fire a little bit. Do you have experience with Mortal Kombat?
I
Not
mean,
really. Eh?
surface level, but not
Just
not
the movie.
Really. No, yeah, that's honestly that's some of the most experience. As you know, I'm not much of a traditional 2D fighter guy. I'm more of a, I'm a platform fighter.
Absolutely.
Guy.
So like the traditional main character would be like Liu Kang. That's like the chosen one. He's the main character that you'd play like in the Sega era Mortal Kombat, like the OG games. And then you had Raiden, the Thunder God, who was like basically giving him the task. Those were kind of like the main characters for the series. A lot of people think of like Sub-Zero, Scorpion just because they're really iconic, but really the main characters would be like Liu Kang, maybe Raiden. And then in the story, they actually fused. So now Liu Kang is like the fire and thunder god now. Like he's just combined with Raiden.
Is the name still Liu Kang for the character?
It's I think it is. I can't quite remember. I it's been a while since I played through the storyline of MK11. And they might have even
like
said
a hybrid of their two like
yeah.
sets.
Okay. Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. It's extremely powerful. Of course, like when you like in the story mode, it is at least. Of course, if you just play, like it's balanced. But yeah, no, that's the idea is they fused him, and then in MK1, that's the character like on the title is the combined version.
Okay.
So it is a direct sequel to MK12, but it actually like did reset things to just not ruin, because especially by the point of MK11, I love the story, but like there's just so many characters that are permanently dead, which is just like unfortunate, because like some of my favorites, shouts out to like Katana, these characters are just like these like zombie versions of themselves now in the main game. Like if you just play as them, like they just look like a ghost, and it's just like, ugh, look what they did to my boy. Like MK11 has like some of the most beautiful graphics I've ever seen in a fighting game. And then I just have like a zombie version of the character. Of course, you can unlock skins and things to like kind of change them back to their original human type form. But I was just, I was a little bit annoyed. And like Goro, the dude with the big arms, like he just wasn't in the game at all, because I think in the previous one, they actually killed him off. So I was really, really pumped that they were resetting the timeline to an extent, just to have these graphics with that early Mortal Kombat story. More again, another story that's so convoluted is the Mortal Kombat story. But long story short, I got super pumped off that trailer, so I re-downloaded MK11 and I was playing a lot of it again. I kind of forgot like a lot of the mechanics. Like there was a period where I was really playing it a lot and just knew like all the different like move cancels and just the advanced techniques. I was really tuning them in, so I was kind of like polishing off the rust, I guess you could say, right now. But I was just having a lot of fun with it, and really excited for MK1. That will probably be a day one purchase for me, honestly. Which is crazy, because MK11, it took me a long time to get into it. It was a game on PS5. I didn't have many PS5 games, so I just picked it up, and yeah, I was very impressed with it. And it just kind of brought a lot of nostalgia back, because Mortal Kombat, I think the first one was one of the earlier games I ever played on Sega, and just the fatality, like all these like classic lines. I just have a lot of happy, warm memories for me as a kid, which is funny because it's a very grotesque and mature game, but got into it young, and I can't wait for MK1. Been playing a lot of Sindel. That's definitely my main. She's the purple chick that uses like her hair to like just really destroy people. She's like a banshee sort of too. She like screams. Tune into one of our previous gauntlets. I just absolutely demolished Taylor as Sindel. I love to bring that up. But yeah, no, I'm really hoping that they bring all those characters back in. Like in the trailer, we see a lot of those iconic ones like Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Katana, Melina. Sindel,
the bug lady.
No, that's Devora, or Devora. I think is her name.
Being a big fan of that character, because I don't, as I mentioned, I'm not really like a big player of 2D fighters, but Mortal Kombat's always been the one that I like to watch the most, like just tournament streams, or like when I went to Evo, I remember just like being really captivated by watching those matches, and for whatever reason, like I feel like it was a very degen kind of strategy that the bug lady uses for her abilities, but I was just like a very interesting kind of play style, and I remember getting really attached to her.
Yeah. I hate her. I hate playing as her because like
Yeah.
you use like her bugs and stuff, and it's just like this is way too much for me to follow. I appreciate her though. I'm glad that she's out there. Yeah, I've seen a couple of like Mortal Kombat esports, and it blows my mind with the things that they can do. Because like I
Yeah.
think I kind of know the game, but then you watch them, and it's also just like how competitive it is. Like there'll be one match where like, or sorry, a round where like a character will just completely ace the other like he's just like constantly comboing them and just like aces them, and then okay, yeah, they got destroyed. The next round, like the other person just like aces
Yeah.
them. It's crazy how that
It
works.
is
But
nuts.
but yeah, no, I love Sindel, and I really hope that she makes it into MK1 purely because I just love playing as her. She's a very, very evil character according to the story, but her playstyle for me is just so fun, and the one that I've definitely sunk in the most hours in.
Do
I
you
would
think
say.
she'll be in it? Is she like a popular or like a one of those
Yeah,
classic Mortal Kombat characters?
I can't remember if she was introduced in MK1 or MK2, like the original games.
Yeah.
She, according to like the story, she is Katana and Melina's mother. She's
Mm.
Shao Kahn. Shao Kahn is like the big dude with the giant hammer, if you can recognize him with the big mask. That's like his wife. So she's kind of like always been around
She's
like that.
important to the lore.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. And I mean, if we're resetting, like she's gonna be back to her evil ways. She was actually a DLC for MK11, I believe. I got the game later, so I ended up just getting like the complete edition, which gave me all the characters. But even if she is a DLC, like I'll probably pick her up because I really, and like that being said, like I feel like for MK1, I can see myself even getting the Games Pass because they do a lot of DLC characters, and a lot of them are just very, very unique and cool. Like in MK11, they had the Terminator, you know, they
Right,
had
the
Arnie
guest
in it.
characters,
They
yeah,
had the
yeah.
Joker, like Joker from like Arkham Asylum, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So they do a really good job, I think, with their character additions. That it doesn't just feel like a money grab. Like it does feel like they actually put a lot of effort into making these characters unique. And of course, each character has like very unique interactions, which with every person on the roster. So if I
That's
played
cool.
like Sindel against Katana, like they do like a little dialogue before the match, or if I do Sindel against Raiden, like again, it's another unique interaction. Same with the DLC characters. So I personally think that it would be worth it, and yeah,
Nice.
I can't wait to see what they add gameplay wise as well. What makes the game like next level. So yeah, lot of excitement. That's been the one that I've been kind of playing in between my Neo deaths or Dark Souls deaths,
Yeah.
maybe just put it because like I
Let
don't
out some
really have.
steam in some Mortal Kombat. That's a
Yeah,
good way to do it. Yeah, I like that.
exactly, because like I don't really have like Shay's not playing this with me, so like I don't
Yeah.
really have another human to go against, which I feel like that's really what makes those games so magical. Like yeah, I can pop off on the AI on like whatever difficulty, but if I increase it one, I might just get bopped. So I think it makes it a lot more like those games are made for PvP.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
I'm missing a companion to play that with.
Yeah. Do you know when Mortal Kombat 1 is coming out? Does it have a release date?
It does. It didn't have a release date when we were talking about it. It just said, I think it said 2023. I'll look that
Do you
up
think
right
we'll
now.
hear about that in Summer Game Fest or Xbox Showcase or anything? Because they
I
kind of
really
just
hope so.
showed off because that was also the PlayStation thing, right? Like you and Taylor were talking about it, but then it was at PlayStation. Is that?
I think it came out right before the showcase. Actually, like
Oh,
they
okay.
they released a like a trailer for it. Like I don't know, a couple days or
Yeah,
maybe even a week
but no release
beforehand.
date yet.
Yeah, right now it says we'll be ready for combat September 19th, 2023. But there will
Oh,
also be an
okay.
early access period for those who purchased either the premium or
Cool.
collector's edition of the game. Maybe that'll be me.
Well, I'm excited to hear you talk about it when it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait.
We cannot. Well, I don't think we'll have anyone playing Street Fighter 6, but we got you covered for Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Sidequest fans. So there you go. We can only do so much. Okay, I guess I'll go here. So I'll go chronologically. I've been gone for a while, but I haven't played a ton of different things. That's because I was away and I only had my phone and my 3DS with me. I didn't have my Xbox. I didn't bring my Switch or anything like that. And my master plan, here's my master plan on this trip, was that right before the 3DS store closed, I picked up a bunch of stuff and I've been picking up some cartridges at game stores and things like that. And I had to get like a special SD card to put in the 3DS to give it more space because the default could not handle all the power I was trying to put on this thing. So now it takes like so long to boot up because it just like there's so much more info on this. It's actually past what they recommend. I think on their website, on Nintendo's website, they're like 32 gig maximum. But I think mine's like 100 or 64. It's something above what they recommend, so it takes a long time to boot up now. And it legitimately took probably 2 weeks to download everything. Like
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
just, it took forever. I remember checking like every couple days, and it would be just like the slowest downloading. I don't know if it's the 3DS's like whack Wi-Fi signal. I don't know if mine's bad. I don't know if it's my house. I don't know what it was, but it took a long time because I was downloaded a bunch of stuff. And that was my master plan. Was like I'm excited to go on this trip. I'm just gonna bring my 3DS. I'm not gonna bring my Switch. I'm just gonna play a bunch of 3DS games. But then my fatal error in this plan was that I forgot that in Europe that they use like a different outlet, and I had my converter, but like it runs at a different voltage, so I just could not charge my 3DS at all. So I only got like a few hours worth of playtime in on my plane until I finally got back into Canada to transfer my last flight, and then I could charge it and play a little bit more. So I didn't actually get to play as much as I wanted to, but you know I have those games forever, so I'll play them at some point in my life. But
Sad.
it is kind of sad, but I jumped around from a few different things. A couple puzzle games that were really good. Picross 3D is really fun, and Pushmo was another cool puzzle game that I was checking out. I actually, so right before I left on my trip, Tears of the Kingdom came out, and I didn't really want to bring the Switch on the trip because I was like, okay, I want to just focus on my trip. I feel like playing Tears of the Kingdom just on the side while I'm traveling is not really a proper way to either do my trip or to play Tears of the Kingdom. I need to like, get back home and give it my all kind of thing. But instead, I was playing a bit of what the hell's the name of the Zelda that came on 3DS? My God, Link
3DS?
Between Worlds. Link Between Worlds. Yeah, it was like the new one that came out there. And I only played it for a little bit, and it's interesting. Essentially, I guess the gimmick of the game is it's a kind of a classic top-down Zelda, but the idea is that you have this. Well, first of all, you have a house, as you always usually do in a Zelda game. You like wake up and you go do some adventuring, and then some guy you like run into him, and he's like, "Hey, can I stay at your house? Like, I don't have anywhere to go." And then he just like turns your house into a shop and like takes over your house, and it's like,
damn.
all right, man. I think they're kind of commenting on the fact that like you always have a house in these Zelda games, but like you never need it and you never really need to go there. So why not turn it into a shop instead? But essentially, like all of the regular dungeon items, like bow and arrow, or let's say the grappling hook or the boomerang, things like that. Like essentially, all of them are part of the shop, and then you can go to different dungeons in different orders. I don't think you can go like all of them out of order, but essentially you can just like go and buy these dungeon items and then tackle the dungeons in whatever way you want. And so it's kind of like a more open style for it, rather than like going through a dungeon, unlocking the grappling hook, and then using that to get to a new area on the map, and then some new dungeon. So it kind of shakes up the formula in some way. So I'm enjoying that, but I'm gonna come back to it. I just wasn't really vibing with it in the moment. So I was jumping around between a few different games, and the one that I really stuck on, and it was like I was so happy to find it, and I was so happy to play it, and then I was like, oh man, I have no battery. I'm not gonna be able to play this thing. That's too bad. It was actually Dragon Quest VIII, which I think the subtitle is The Journey of the Cursed King or something stupid like that. I've never played a Dragon Quest game before, other than a little bit of, I think 11. There was like a demo on the Switch that I was playing for a bit there, but it's always been one of those classic JRPG series that I've wanted to check out, and I've missed so much of those games. Like I've Final Fantasy is a big blind spot for me, or like Suikoden or the Mana series. Like I've not really played any of those because I didn't have PlayStation systems growing up, and Dragon Quest has always been one of those as well that I've always wanted to play. I think particularly just because of the art style. It's very bright and vibrant, very colorful. What's the name of the DBZ?
Akira Toriyama.
Yeah. He does the art for that, or the concept. I don't know what he does exactly. I
think he's done like the character design for them. Because as soon as I saw them, it was like, oh my god, Dragon Ball Z. But no, it's Dragon Quest, and like the characters are very iconic for his art style, which I love. Obviously, very nostalgic series.
Yeah, so a combination of like his art style with just how vibrant and like colorful and over the top the game is, like, has always really worked for me. And yeah, I when I was just playing it, I feel like immediately in like a half an hour, I was like super into it. It's just a very silly and like almost stupid game at times. Like the humor, there's a lot of puns. It's very goofy. It's like randomly like overtly sexual in like some moments with like jokes that I was not expecting. And then just like the enemy designs are super whack. Like there's one enemy that's like literally just a boot, and then he has like a little blue orb like on top of the boot. There's one, it's literally two peppers, like a green and red pepper, that are like skewered together, and they have like this evil little shit-eating grin, and I forget, they're called like crazy capsicums or something like that. Or like, you know, there's these dancing devils that do these weird little dances and try and put you asleep and stuff, and like it's just such a stupid and silly game, and like all these characters and enemy types are so goofy and over the top, and it's just exactly the vibe I want. But it just felt like a nice like epic journey kind of game where you really have just a, you know, larger open area, you can explore it, a lot of characters to talk to, go to these different towns, level up your characters and stuff like that. It was kind of the exact vibe I needed, where I had like a 10-hour flight on the way home, and you know, I just want to burn like as many hours as I can. It's like the perfect game for that, because I think it is a very long game as well, and I'm only a few hours in at this point. But I also think too, like, you know, jumping into the 8th game in a series, it's kind of a weird thing to do, but I feel like it's just so refined in terms of the combat systems and leveling up and stuff like that. And one thing I really appreciate about it is that you can set your characters to do like automatic things in battle. So you could like just set them to attack by default, and that way you can like really grind through enemies really quick, which is perfect for when you're going through just like the open world and enemies are bumping into you, and you just quickly grind through them as you're trying to get to like the dungeon or something. And then when you get to a higher stakes area, you can like turn it back onto being able to select the individual moves. But you can also like make it so you can just set an individual character to auto attack, and then one character you can choose to you know, control them, or you could like just set someone to always heal, and then another guy to, you know, custom controls, all that stuff. And yeah, I just feel like all that stuff is not something that would have been in the first Dragon Quest game, but in the 8th one is like just refined down to like a perfect science. And I just like leveling up always feels good. The amount of points you get is perfect, and you just like, oh, I want to level up this thing and this thing. It's like all of it is so really just well refined, and I'm just like I'm kind of surprised at how much I loved it like immediately. I thought it would take me like a few hours to get into it, or maybe I'd play for a few hours and just like bounce off of it. So I don't know how much time I'll make for it right now, just as I'm playing a bunch of other newer things and whatnot. But like, yeah, what a just like special find. I'm really glad I picked it up before that store closed down.
Does it make you want to jump on the series now if the future title or something comes? Because what was their most previous one that came out?
I think it was 11.
Okay.
More specifically, like a remaster of 11.
Because they also had that Dragon Quest Builders one. I can't remember how many years that came off.
I guess you would call that like, there's actually 2 of those now, and I guess those would be like spin-offs, and then I think there's other Dragon Quest spin-offs that exist. So yeah, it's definitely a storied series, and I mean, I think I definitely will want to check out other games. I guess maybe the one thing holding me back is that this game, from what I understand, like all of them are pretty long, and so I think I'll want to see this one through to the end, and that might take me, you know, because it's kind of like a game I'm playing in the background.
Yeah,
like that might take me months or like even a year or 2 or something like that, which I think is good. Like I'm not really in a hurry. It's not a new game. I don't need to talk about it on the podcast for a review, or like do, you know, make sure I play all of it before end of the year rankings and stuff like that. It's just kind of one of those things to have in the background. So I think I definitely will want to check out other stuff in the future, and maybe I think probably next I would jump to, I don't know if I'd go to a Switch one. I think I'd maybe want to go to some older like pixel art style one. I don't know if any of those exist on the Switch or where you'd play those nowadays, but I think that's probably where I'd want to go next, just to maybe go like Dragon Quest 4 or 5 kind of range, or I'd probably look up, you know, fans rankings and see what games tend to be people's favorites and maybe go there. But I mean, I'm really liking what the 3DS version is, and I know that Dragon Quest 7 was also a 3DS game, so I mean, the store is closed now, so I'd have to find a physical copy somewhere. So if I can find that, that might be the good place to go after this one. But between the 2, I was looking up recommendations, and people recommended to go to 8 before 7.
Oh, okay.
They're both pretty good from what I understand, but 8 might be the better one to go to.
I'd be kind of surprised. Like, is there no Dragon Quest games on the Game Boy Advance? Because I don't know why. It just I feel like that console just screams
there must
Dragon
be.
Quest. Because I like in my mind I'm like, that is the perfect Dylan Dragon Quest game, because I know you love your Game Boy Advance. I know you love going to your physical store or your physical game stores. paying extremely a lot of money for a little cartridge.
No, I mean I try and find good prices usually, but then I do
Yeah.
splurge on the Fire Emblem.
I'm over exaggerating, people. He's not dropping thousands of dollars on a cartridge that I know
Let's see here. I mean, I'm sure that there would be probably a GBA version of some earlier Dragon Quest games. I don't know how many of them were like first released on GBA. I'm seeing Dragon Quest Monsters, Dragon Quest Characters. So I'm seeing some spin-off games here. It looks like maybe more consoles, and then 3DS is when, and maybe some DS games. Yeah, so it seems like GBA maybe didn't have like a mainline entry. Probably at that, I guess at that point in time, they were probably on PS2. So they were probably just making stuff for PS2 and then maybe like spin-offs for GBA. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure the Switch has something that I can check out there. But yeah, I would be down to check out these spin-offs. I remember I did check out a bit of Dragon Quest Builders, and that was pretty cool. I did enjoy what was going on there. I played it for a few hours, so it was a pretty like healthy demo they give you on Switch. So I jumped into that for a bit. So yeah, it's now a world that I just want to like dive deeper into for sure. But I'm gonna take it one step at a time, take it pretty slowly. And the other thing too that I really enjoyed, and I always loved when I go into a game that is in Smash, but I've not played those original games, is just seeing like immediately picking up on some of the moveset stuff that Smash does such a good job of just ripping movesets directly out of games. And so to have like one of the basic attacks be like his dash attack in Smash is really cool. And also this is kind of just as a happy accident, but in Smash, Hero is what they just call the Dragon Quest character because he never really has like an explicit name. And then they have 8 different versions, and I think it's a hero from 8 of the different games. And the one that I've always gravitated to in Smash is actually the protagonist of this one. So I didn't plan that, but it just kind of worked out. And I think in Smash 2, like this character has like a little gerbil dude in his pocket, and I always thought it's kind of cute and funny. And in this game, you like at one point you use that, you like play as the gerbil, you like sneak through this little hole in the wall to go investigate a room and steal a note and all that stuff. So that was kind of just a happy accident. But yeah, I love to see how just authentic these movesets are to the games they come from. I just play other games and I just appreciate Smash even more. I always brought back there.
When you were describing like just the really weird villains, they reminded me of like a little bit of Cuphead, how like weird and like sometimes you're like fighting a carrot or something. Like it's just it's so weird and random. Like it just works at least for what that world is. I had no idea Dragon Quest went in that route. I knew they had obviously dragons and things like that, and just the Akira Toriyama, like the beautiful like box cover art that they have. It just has always definitely interested me, but I don't know, maybe just the JRPG aspect to it kind of made me a little bit standoffish. Not my main cup of tea.
I feel like I don't know if I have any friend in real life that has ever played a Dragon Quest game. Like for some reason it's always been more of a Japanese sort of IP, I guess, but I feel like it's always kind of, I've just never really heard people talk about it. So my expectations were not really anywhere at all. And so I think that's why I'm so surprised by how goofy and silly the dialogue and characters and world are. But yeah, really enjoying that. But because I only had, 4 to 5 hours worth of 3DS battery on this trip, the game I ended up playing just an absolute ton of, Kirklin, was Marvel Snap.
He's back on it.
Back in I think February, I did a cast where I just went through like some of my favorite decks that I've been playing in Marvel Snap, and in that episode I said I'm going to be taking a break from the game, and I did. I didn't really play much for a couple months there, played like maybe 10 games over the next couple months, but with May I was pretty hyped back on it because they like all the monthly seasons pass is related to, if they can, related to something that's coming out. So it was the Guardians of the Galaxy month, where they had Nebula as like the new character, and then they introduced a bunch of other new cards as well. And Nebula is like a really strong card, really cool ability. So I was like, okay, I want to jump in on this month, and ended up being pretty good because, if I just got to kill time on a train or sitting in an airport or just like back at the Airbnb and just like winding down for the evening, like I just played so much Marvel Snap in that downtime. There's a lot of downtime here or there. And yeah, it was really fun. Nebula's a really good card. and I really liked the Guardians season. And I usually don't really play to win necessarily. I usually just play to get like the daily rewards and mess around with some fun decks. But I wanted to see how high I could make it if I made like a really, I don't even know if you'd call it a meta deck, but it was just like a deck made of just really good cards. There was some synergies here or there, but more or less it was just like, I'm going to make a deck just of what I consider like the 12 best cards in the game, essentially, and see how high I can go. And I was doing really hot. I was doing the best that I've gotten before. I got to level 69. When you hit like each 10 is when you like get, you break into a new category, whatever it is. And I was doing really well. Made it up to 69. And then a new card released, the High Evolutionary, the villain from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 released, which is just like one of those. There's a few cards in the game like Galactus or Thanos. Like some big villains like that usually are like very game-changing. Like they change the whole element of your deck. They change like the whole metagame around them. And High Evolutionary is definitely one of those. It's actually a really cool card because in the game there's, for each of the energy costs, there's like, 0 all the way up to 6. So 7 cards in the game that don't have an ability, and they're just meant to be like kind of a default card. And some of them are like popular characters, like Cyclops is one of those, Hulk is another one. And I think people have been disappointed that like, oh man, why don't like these iconic characters have an ability? It's kind of disappointing that they're just like a default card, and that synergizes with some other decks like Patriot and stuff like that. But High Evolutionary's ability is really cool because he gives all of if you have High Evolutionary in your deck, he gives all of those characters an additional ability, so they finally have some powerful ability, and like almost all of them are very, very, very strong. Like, I don't know, I don't want to call it imbalanced or anything like, but he seems like a very broken card to me. He seems like a bit too strong, and I eventually did learn some counters, but it's also just a lot to keep track of without going into detail. It's a deck that like you really, if you're playing against it, you almost need like a sheet of paper next to you to like keep track of how much energy they're saving to like build up to, potentially get some stronger cards in the end like that. So that eventually, when he came out, that just kind of wrecked my strategy in a lot of ways, and I dropped down quite a bit. And then so I never made it past 69. So unfortunately, I did not make it to that 70 mark, which comes with like a good reward too. You get like a bunch of credits. So I'm like, damn, I was so freaking close, one game away potentially, but then I lost it all. But yeah, it's been really fun getting back into the game. I think one of the reasons I stopped playing back in February was that how do I describe it? I wasn't too stoked with the way they had it set up in terms of how quickly you unlock cards. It was just so slow, and especially if you weren't buying the season pass, you were getting a lot less. And I just found like I'm getting cards so infrequently that I'm not really excited to make new decks, that I'm not really excited to play the game anymore. But they've remedied some of that now, and whether that is just getting a season pass, but they have a couple other ways that you can use like these tokens, and they've revamped this. You get like a new free card every month kind of thing. And so you're getting a lot more cards. And I think in this last month, I've got like 6 or 7 new cards or something like that, which is insane. Also, I played a lot, so that helps. But it's just been very exciting to play again and get all these new cards. And, if you have most card games, have like 20 or more cards, but in Marvel Snap where it's only 12, one new card can like make for a whole lot of room in terms of making new decks or slotting it into the decks you have. And so to have like 5 or 6 new cards in a month, like I just have been having so much fun making some cool new synergies and combos and stuff like that. And then leading into this month, which the new season starts tonight, like in a couple hours, and it's the Spider-Verse month. I don't know if I'm gonna get the seasons pass yet, but like when Spider-Gwen's like the new card, they have Spider-Man 2099 in there. Spider-Ham is like a new one. Silk, so just a bunch of spider characters. So that's pretty exciting. I know, Kirklin, you're a big spider guy, so maybe it's a good time to jump in potentially if you want to. But yeah, it's pretty exciting, and I had a lot of fun getting back into Marvel Snap this month.
That's awesome. I feel like all my questions are hardware related, specifically for you, because I know that you've been holding on. I don't know if you still have it, but I know that you've been holding on to a single phone for like, I feel like the last 400 years.
I have a new phone now.
Is that a new phone? Okay.
I have a new phone now. Yeah. I did not get it for Marvel Snap. I will tell you that. I got it because my phone's battery life was dog shit, and I had no space on it, and I needed I needed new space, and I needed a better battery life for when I went on my trip. So I wanted to get a new phone, and it just so happened that now Marvel Snap runs a lot better on my phone, and like it loads really fast. So that's a nice bonus for getting the new phone.
When did you upgrade? Like right before your trip?
Pretty much, like
That is crazy. You had that phone like well before podcasts.
Oh yeah, I got it. I remember getting it like 2015, I think, because it was like around when Pokemon Go came out, and that was like it wasn't the newest model that year either. So yeah, that's 8 years of that phone. I've only had like this is like my fourth phone at this point. I think.
That's impressive.
So I've not had two. I don't really upgrade to the new models
Yeah.
usually. So it is generally nice to have a new phone. I feel that I'm in the modern day again in my battery life. My previous phone, man, I would wake up in the morning and like it would be unplugged. You know, I just took it out of the charger and it would be at 70% battery in like 10 minutes. Like it was so bad. It was on its last legs. So
It would just
I
go
needed
from 0 to
replace it.
70.
It went from 100 to 70 in 10 minutes. It was ridiculous.
That is funny. Well, I mean, congratulations. You're on the new gen of phones. Because, yeah, all my questions were going to be like, how are you running? Like, did they just have a lot of Wi-Fi in Europe that you're able to leech off of? Or is there some sort of data plan thing that you did for a traveler?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Wi-Fi, like the Airbnbs and stuff. But then I did get a data plan. So I got like 10 gigs for the whole month.
Oh, okay.
It cost me like $40 to do. I think it was $30-40, something like that to do that. So because I wanted that for like Google Maps and be able to like look up things when I was on the go and whatnot. But man, like by the end of the trip, I was like, man, I have so much left, so much of this gigabyteage to use that I was just streaming videos on like trains and like playing Marvel Snap, and I still had like multiple gigs left. So I could go pretty hard by the end of the trip when I was like, oh, I have a lot of space left and I need to. This is not going anywhere. I might as well use up as much of this as I can. So, yes.
No, that's
easy
fantastic.
to play a lot of it.
Yeah, that's perfect. My other question was just gonna be like, how does your old phone run Marvel Snap? That makes no sense to me. But
it does not run it great. I mean, I did play it on there for a while, but it was pretty slow and laggy for sure. So
yeah,
it is.
Are you gonna like frame that thing, like put it into a museum? Like I feel like it probably has more kilometers than like my grandma's old car.
Yeah, I still have it right here.
Beautiful case.
I do need.
Love the case.
I know that's the thing. I love this phone case.
Yeah.
But like the phones are quite different size.
Oh yeah.
So this phone case won't work on here.
Just cut it out and glue it.
But I definitely want to
like.
I don't know if it's bad of me to just keep this phone case for the rest of my life, but I just love this thing. It's such a cool phone case. I haven't got
beautiful.
a new one. I don't have a phone case for this thing yet. This is like the one they gave me at the store for free.
Oh,
so
okay.
I have something to protect it, but I do need to get a cool new one at some point here.
I know specifically that phone was like pre-podcast because I remember being in your basement and you gave it to me and you're like, "Can you tell what that is?" And then I blanked like a goldfish or something. But then I can't remember if I eventually clued onto it. But beautiful Futurama case, all the characters there with their little pixels.
The YouTube audience, check that out.
I love it.
I'm getting back into some things. I forgot to take an ad break. Let's take an ad break right now, and we'll be right back. We have a couple more things to talk about. Okay, we are back. Kirkland, I didn't know if we'd hit an hour today. We have an hour, and we still have like a ton of things to talk about. That's just
beautiful,
how it goes
yeah.
Over here when we haven't talked in nearly a month. So
we're doing phone reviews. We're
we're
doing all this.
I have a Google Pixel 7 now.
Ooh,
it's all right. It could be better, but it's decent.
Good photos.
Photos are amazing. Yes,
yeah.
That's not the issue. I just think it's some of the weird Google-ness of it. Like, very quick side tangent on this is that there's not like, if you take a photo on this thing, it goes on like Google Photos, and there's like a hard limit to how much space you can have on that. It's not just like, okay, your phone has 70 gigs worth of space, so you can fill up 70 gigs. Like, it's a hard cap, and then you have to buy more, which is like, I did not know that before buying the phone. And it's very frustrating because in this month I took a lot of photos and videos on my trip, and like I'm at like 80% of that filled, so I have to like spend money on my phone to just get more space, even though my phone has like tens and tens of gigs worth of space. It's annoying. That's my one big gripe. Otherwise, it's pretty good. Talk about some video games here. Now that I'm home, a couple things. Still finishing up Coffee Talk episode 2. I didn't finish that before I went on my trip, and the Storm DLC for Midnight Suns. Working my way through that. But the main thing is, of course, now that I'm home, I have jumped into Tears of the Kingdom, picked it up over the weekend, and played for maybe 2 or 3 hours at this point, and finished what would be kind of the equivalent of the Great Plateau, like the we'll say the tutorial zone where you're kind of set specifically on this one island, one of the sky islands, and you're going around. You get like 3 main abilities, learn the basic mechanics of the game, refamiliarize yourself, introduce the story and all that stuff. And I've just dropped down to like proper Hyrule, and I'm back in the open world and can now go do whatever the hell I want. But yeah, so far it's unsurprisingly at all, it's very good, very very good. I'm really liking the just aesthetic of the Sky Island. It's like very peaceful, and I like that it's kind of these more. They can be almost more designed because they're these smaller, they're islands, right? So they're not just a complete open world area, and I feel like they can get pretty specific with some of the design here. And I feel like I've already got to be pretty creative in how I navigate with that, and just immediately you get that ability to fuse things together, and that is really fun to just make stupid little boats. Or I just had to like move this minecart. I had to get to the next area, but instead I made like this huge, just Goliath minecart that had like multiple floors to it, and I put a little guy up there, and then I was going on this mine thing, and then it's like, okay, I'm in the open air with these mine tracks, and like the wind was like pulling my minecart off because I made this huge Goliath thing, and I like almost popped off the track. And just little moments like that, I feel like it's already just all these systems coalescing into making these like really unique and powerful moments. And that's just like, I'm just scratching the surface so far. So I'm very excited to get deeper into it. But yeah, it's really good so far. The first 3 like shrines you do are pretty well designed, and I hope that keeps up, because that's one of my main criticisms of Breath of the Wild, is that the shrines are generally kind of bad or just filler content, and I hope that these ones are not that. I hope that they are, creative, good puzzles like this. And I really don't know too much of what to expect. I've tried to stay as completely blind on this game as I possibly can, though it's hard because every video game website is posting like 4 to 5 articles a day still in like June. They're still posting all this stuff. So of course in those titles of the headlines, I'm seeing like hints of things like that of what I can expect.
Ganon's in it.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Well, he's introduced pretty quick, but yeah, just other things that I won't bother saying here, but it's really good so far. I don't know what else I can really say at this point, but just like also combining weapons is really fun. It's a good way to mess around with the, instead of having breakable weapons, just like, oh yeah, have a stick and put like a gigantic box on it. And then, I didn't know how this would work, but you can just make like 10 of those and put them in your pockets. Like it's janky in that way. It makes no sense how Link is carrying all this stuff, but like it's perfect. I'm glad that they did that. And so just walking around with this just humongous hammer of a weapon that just shatters on these enemies is super satisfying. Like this one enemy had like this giant plank essentially, and it kind of blows wind because it's like this big fan-like item. And he was just knocking his teammates all around the battlefield. One knocked me off a cliff. And just like, it's such a goofy game. It's made me laugh a few times already, which is perfect. So I can't wait to get deeper into it. I'm going to take my time with it. It might take me months to beat. I guess my goal is to beat it before Starfield, which is like, okay, I have a lot of time to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to get deeper into it, and I will keep reporting back. I don't know. I want to dedicate an episode to it, but no one else like Geekverse is playing it, and I'm like so far behind the curve at this point that I don't know if I'll do that. I might just keep updating on Sidequest where I'm at and share my fun adventures, kind of like I was doing with Hitman back a few months ago when we were talking
Those
about
good
that.
times.
So yeah, do you have any questions about that game? I mean,
I do.
I'm only so far in, but I'm curious what are your questions?
I got a couple questions. One being, well, like when you're combining, let's say a box to a stick or something, does like, yeah, I get it. Like the weapon itself might change, might be doing more damage or whatnot. But like, let's say I can't remember if Breath of the Wild had this, but like, let's say I had like a spear versus a sword. Like, do you use that differently, or is he just swinging it the exact same? And then does it change if I put like a box on it? Like, does the weapon type change in that aspect, or is it just? There's
as far as I can tell, kind of 3 styles right now, which is there's like a regular stick. There's like a big stick. This sounds stupid, but this is what it's like in the game. Or there's a long stick, and then essentially like for whatever one of those you have, and it seems like you just kind of find them random. Like, oh, this time I found a big stick. This time I hit this tree down and I got a long stick. Then that changes what the weapon type is. So if it's a long stick, it will act like a spear, and then whatever you put on it, a box, you probably want to put something like sharp, like a tip or something like that. And that's like a spear version of that, where the big one is kind of like a big warhammery type of thing. So that's a good one to put a big box on, do like a big jumping strike. And then the standard one is almost just like a sword, right? So you can put once again whatever you want on there, like a nice rock will do a good thing for you there. But yeah, it's just a good way to extend the life of your weapons, because normally a stick will break in like 4 hits, but if you put a big rock on it, it seems to last for a lot longer.
That's cool.
And I don't know if you. I don't know if you have a stick with a rock on it. This conversation sounds really dumb, but
I love it.
Promise, this is for the game. I don't know if you like break the rock off it and then you still have that stick and you can equip like a new whatever box, rock, whatever the hell you want to put on it, or if it breaks that whole thing and you got to find a new stick. But I mean, sticks are pretty much everywhere, trees all over the place. So yeah, I don't foresee that being too big of an issue. But I got to say, like, Breath of the Wild, I played a lot of that game, got a ton of weapon slots, item slots. To go back to this and have like 6 slots is like, oh god, it is treacherous to have to navigate that equipment again. So obviously it is really nice that you have longer life expectancy with these weapons because of the ability to fuse things onto it. But yeah, it just seems like these systems, there's already so many great physics systems and cooking systems in Breath of the Wild, but to have these additional ways to combine items is really satisfying. And making cars and vehicles and boats, even if you're just doing some stupid thing where it doesn't even really matter how well you make it because you just try to get up this little piece of water, it still is like really satisfying and really fun and really intuitive, really easy. I think that's maybe one of the big questions I had was like, how quick and how easy is it? And is there cooldowns in terms of making these things? But as far as I can tell, like I'm sure there's a limit to how big you can make vehicles, but so far it seems like they really aren't limiting you, and it's really quick to just make a very weird and fun car, and that's just so cool. I don't know. I would not have expected that would be what they were gonna do as a sequel to Breath of the Wild, but it's great. And I know that you can make like carriages for horses, which I don't have a horse yet, so it might take me a bit before I do that. But I'm excited to like build houses with this mechanic, which I think you can do. I can't wait to just dive into some of the depths of this thing.
Yeah. Has there been anything that you come across where like you expected to be able to fuse something together and you weren't able to, like the limitations? Have you kind of come across that, or have you been kind of surprised in the sense that you can really just let your imagination go? And have you been coming across something it's like, oh, I wonder if I can do this, and you actually can? It's like, holy shit, like they kind of thought of everything? Or like what side of the spectrum is it on? Is it kind of in the middle, like it makes sense for what is limited?
I mean, I haven't felt limited in anything I've tried to do yet, and I'm curious to see how much there is to it, because I feel like even one thing immediately that you're kind of doing is you're up in the sky, and to get like between these islands there's these giant railings, and so you have like a giant hook, and so you kind of pretty simple, you attach the hook to some sort of plank of wood, you put that hook on that rail, and then you can stand on the wood and like you'll glide down it. And I don't think that was ever shown in a trailer, but that's like a fun little interaction you'll do. And yeah, so like I don't know. I haven't felt like I've been limited in any way yet. And then I don't know. It seems like you can do things even if they aren't good in any way. Like at one point, I got this like this little light orb, and you go into like these dark caves. So essentially what you need to do is hit it on. It needs to have some sort of pressure on it, and then it will like glow, and you can use it as like a torch. And I was a little bit confused at first until I like attached it to my sword and then did like a big diving attack, smashed the ground, then it created a light. You could also just throw it, but I was like a bit confused as I put that on my shield, and I was like, okay, well, I guess if someone hits me, then like it'll hit the shield and then it will like glow into a torch. But it's like I don't think you would ever really need to do that, but it seems like they just let you do that, and it didn't actually help me because there was no enemies in that cave anyway to hit me. But yeah, it seems like they let you do stuff even if it doesn't make any sense and it doesn't help you in any way. So that's a good sign, because then that means that anything you actually do want to do is hopefully pretty possible and pretty straightforward.
No, that's sweet. I've seen some wild creations already just on the internet, interwebs, and yeah, I don't really know much about the game, so it's kind of just random to see a video of Link making some random object, and it's just like, wow, this is the state of Legend of Zelda now, and people are loving it, so that's sweet. My last question. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
My last question was going to be, I don't even know if you can answer this, but does this tie in any way to Skyward Sword? You got the Sky City that you're or like the Sky Islands that you're kind of listing off there. And I remember when Breath of the Wild was coming out, I probably one late night I was on like YouTube and someone was trying to like connect like Skyward Sword to Breath of the Wild, and of course like the whole mythos that is Legend of Zelda is so convoluted. There's so many different like canons, I guess, and different like chronological orders of things. It's all over the place. So I was curious if now that we have Sky Islands, is there anything like, oh no, this is it, they're actually tying it to Skyward Sword, or not at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where, like, yeah, at one point Nintendo released that Hyrule Historia, I think is what they called it, and that like went through like, oh, here's where it started, and then it broke into these 3 different timelines. Then you have like the Toon Link timeline, you have like the Dark timeline with Majora's Mask and all this stuff, but like it doesn't actually really make any sense. Like they just put it in a book, but like the games aren't really justifying what they're actually doing there in terms of tying these things together. So I'm sure as far as I understand, Breath of the Wild is kind of a sequel to everything that's happened. Like it is that was like the most recent thing to have occurred in the world of Hyrule. It's almost like a post-apocalyptic sort of situation where like the world went through all this change, and then like Breath of the Wild is what you're left with at the end. And I think I just saw an article today like these are the oldest versions of these characters, which would make sense in that, going with that theory that this is the latest game in the timeline. So yeah, I don't know where Skyward Sword falls in relation to Breath of the Wild, and then this is a very direct sequel to Breath of the Wild. I think that's worth noting just because there's not a ton of Zelda games that are truly direct sequels in like an actually noticeable way. Yeah. But this is obviously using the exact same map. Well, not the exact same. The same map with changes, additions, and things like that, and it's a continuation of sorts. So I really can't answer that for you because I have not played Skyward Sword, and I'm not far enough yet. But I'm sure in some way it is related, or there's like connections. But my guess would be that none of it is truly meaningful unless you're like one of those diehard Zelda fans that can find meaning in like some random symbol on a wall, right?
Yeah, they got their whiteboard all filled out. Yeah, this is how it's tied. Cool.
There you go. Tears of the Kingdom. I will talk more about that at some point in the future, and I think that's pretty much it for all the games that I had that I want to shout out. So why don't we move into this, which is that a few days ago, Bloomberg released an article and related to Arcane and what happened with Redfall and what's going on here. So really good article. Bloomberg is like paywalled, but if someone is a subscriber, they can like share the link. So shout outs to the Arcane Discord where I was able to get a link to read the article. I don't know why I bothered explaining that, but I did. And I just I took out 3 particular excerpts that were interesting to me. And so maybe I'll just read off all of them and then we can kind of break this down, Kirklin. But so this is from Bloomberg. I'm kind of quoting it here. So here's one note about kind of the leadership of the game. So developers under Harvey Smith and Ricardo Bear said the 2 leads were outwardly excited about the project, but as it progressed, they failed to provide clear direction for the game. Staff members said that over time they grew frustrated with management's frequently shifting references to other games, such as Far Cry and Borderlands, that left each department with varying ideas of what exactly they were making. Throughout the development, the fundamental tension between single-player and multiplayer design remained unresolved. Something about kind of the team and the morale at Arcane is that the morale at Arcane suffered. Veteran workers who weren't interested in developing a multiplayer game left in droves. Kirkland, this is crazy. By the end of Redfall's development, roughly 70% of the Austin staff who had worked on Prey were no longer at the company.
Holy shit.
According to people familiar, as well as Bloomberg's analysis of LinkedIn and Prey's credits. And then the last note here is kind of about the Xbox acquisition. So the acquisition gave some staff at Arcane hope that Microsoft might cancel Redfall, or better yet, let them reboot it as a single-player game. According to sources familiar with the production, instead, Microsoft maintained as a pretty hands-off approach. Aside from canceling a version of Redfall that may have been planned for the PS5, Microsoft allowed them to operate pretty much on their own, doing their own thing with great autonomy. And then Microsoft's Phil Spencer would later say that they did not do a good job early on in engaging Arcane Austin. So a bit of a mixed match there in how I pulled those quotes out of there, but I'm going to start with that team thing because that's obviously crazy. We know that after Prey, Raphael left the studio, who, the founder of Arcane. And we know that he brought some Arcane people with him to Wolfeye Studios where they made Weird West over there. But it seems like beyond that, with just what Redfall was, a lot of people at studio did not want to make the game and just pieced out of there. So this is obviously like heartbreaking to me because obviously I knew some people were gone. But the fact that like the team that made Prey is really just not there in any capacity at this point, it makes me feel like, well, I don't know if it, I don't think we'd ever get a Prey sequel anyway, necessarily from Arcane and what that game was, but just like, man, the magic that was Prey, like that's gone. Like that is so much of the team that is gone. And I would not be shocked if more people left after just the result of this game. I'm going to talk about Harvey Smith a bit later on too, but like, man, that's heartbreaking that like we both said on that retrospective, Arcane's like our favorite studio.
Yeah.
And that still stands for me with Leon, but I don't know if I can say that about Austin because like everyone's gone, and obviously with every video game ever, there's always going to be a bit of ship of Theseusness of it where some people leave, new people join and stuff like that. But 70% is a fuck ton of people, especially when a lot of that is like top heavy people, like Raph and other big designers and stuff.
No, that's the vast majority of it. 70%. That's a huge chunk. That's like it's almost like it's a completely different studio now with 30% of the remaining crew that was there originally, and it's just, I don't know. It makes me think that everything, like, like it just feels like a whole new studio now of like, if they have a new property, it's not so much like, oh yeah, like I love that studio that did this title or whatnot, because it's not exactly that. They have the same name, but I mean, all fresh faces, and sounds like the morale of those fresh faces. I mean, they stayed for some reason, so hopefully they are a little bit hopeful there, as opposed to, I don't know, maybe just a pay wage increase because everybody else left. Who knows? But just like sad red flags. Not even just like, oh, that's crazy, but this is a studio that I really enjoy their games, and knowing this, it's more than just upsetting, because it's just saddening, because I actually have some skin in the game with how much I love those titles.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting too that I guess I should put this out there that this article is kind of a collection of Bloomberg talking with I think they said between like 10, 15 people at the studio, though no one's like name is on there. So you can take this all with a grain of salt, but a lot of it does seem to track with what's going on here. But I thought this was interesting. That I think this was before the game came out, but Harvey Smith, who we love over here, he outwardly said that they were originally making a PS5 version of the game, but then they canceled it after the like Xbox acquisition, and this was like in the heat of that all that talk of like Xbox trying to acquire Activision Blizzard, and that being kind of an issue on PlayStation. Like that was just not good fuel for the fire for him to say that. I was shocked when he did say that, and then as soon as he mentioned that, Xbox like immediately refuted it. We're like, no, that did not happen. We did not cancel a PS5 version. And I was like, Harvey, what are you doing? Like, is he on the way out the door too, and he doesn't really care if he's like burning some bridges on the way? Is he trying to get fired? Like, that would be a crazy thing. Like, is he trying to get like a severance package or something like that? So if he leaves, I will be very sad because he's very important, and obviously he was like the studio lead here for this game, and Redfall is what it is. So that's a bit disappointing, but I wouldn't put the blame completely on him. It seems like there's many factors, and one of that being that even outside of just him and Ricardo being the directors of the project, like ZeniMax really wanting to push, Bethesda pushing like, we want a multiplayer game, potential microtransactions, and it seems like no one really wanted to make that game at Arcane, but they were kind of forced to be making it, and obviously that kicked a lot of people out the door in a lot of ways. So yeah, just like pretty crazy stuff, and it makes me really curious what the hell we're gonna see from the future of specifically Arcane Austin, and Like, who's gonna
Yeah.
stay after Redfall? I don't know. I'm curious.
No, it's and like going forward, I don't have a lot of faith that like the people that make this project just had like none of like it sounded like nobody was really feeling that they did a good job with that one or like they're satisfied with it. It's I mean the Harvey's comments like that's just oh man is like aren't you the main name on this title and you're just going out that way. That's so bad in my eyes. So I don't know. It's just bad vibes all around.
Yeah. What was the other point I was gonna make? I guess just like, what are they gonna make next? Because I don't think for this team, it's a weird thing too. Okay, if they buffed up this team in a lot of ways, and a lot of people left, and a lot of people they'd probably bring on would be people who have experience making multiplayer games and are familiar with that. And there's issues with the multiplayer in this game, so who knows how well they did that. But then if they go back to the drawing board now under Xbox and they're like, okay, that didn't work out, go back to what you're great at making, which is immersive sims, single player games. Maybe do a Deathloop multiplayer element where it's like there's a multiplayer in there, but you wouldn't call it explicitly a multiplayer game. But then like, okay, well, what if all these people that they staffed up for this game are like multiplayer game making people, and now you're in this weird spot where like, do you start rehiring again and like try and build this thing up from scratch? Like, it just seems like whatever they make next is going to be a very uphill battle. I would be shocked if it was a multiplayer focused game again, just after what happened here. So we'll see what goes on there. But then even then, like in terms of established games, like we definitely will not get a Redfall sequel. I don't think they would give this studio Dishonored 3. That also wouldn't make a whole lot of sense because it's the other Arcane that made Dishonored 2 and Death of the Outsider, and then Deathloop, which is in that world. We're definitely not getting a Prey sequel, especially with Raph leaving. So what do they do? I guess they're making another new IP as their next title. Well, now that has some challenges of like defining what this new thing is. So I guess I do have some fear that there is a potential where Arcane Austin turns into a support studio, whether that's a support studio for Arcane Lyon or a support studio for, whether that's another Bethesda thing, that's another Xbox thing. But we saw that Arcane did some support studio stuff for Wolfenstein stuff, and I would just be very bummed if that's what Arcane Austin's future was turning into a support studio and then maybe getting just like folded into something else in the future. Making it like for other games or support, or like, oh, I guess we have multiplayer people now, so if we want a multiplayer game, we're going to get Arcane Austin to help out, and they're going to be like, help us make some multiplayer elements to this thing. Like, oh, that would just be the most like heartbreaking future for the studio. And we still have Lyon, which is nice, but man, I really love the idea of having two Arcanes that were just firing on all cylinders back to back.
I hope at the end of the day this is just like a bump in the road. We can look back on it and be like, man, remember that dark time for Arcane Austin, but then they really recover on their next title. I really hope that goes the route and not what you kind of laid out with the potential support studio aspect to it, or I don't know, just saying that they can't do multiplayer. I don't think that is the case. I definitely can foresee a future where Arcane Austin could pump out a very good multiplayer title. It sounds like that isn't like, just because Redfall was multiplayer, I don't think that's what brought that game down by any means.
No,
so I really hope it's I hope they can recover from this for sure.
Yeah, and the other, I mentioned this line again. The acquisition gave some staff at Arcane hope that Microsoft might cancel Redfall. Like, that right there is the most damning line I've ever seen in my life. The fact that, oh, sweet, we got acquired. Can we cancel this game that we've been working on for, I guess at that point it was a couple of years, which that's a long time. 2 years is a long time to be working on something and actively want it to get canceled. But I guess at that point, that was a while ago. So that was probably an earlier version of it. And maybe like, oh, this is just not working. Let's just try something new. But or better yet, let them reboot it as a single player game. So it sounds like that was also a good thing. But yeah, if that's what the staff are saying over there, that like, man, I really wish this game got canceled and we could work on something better, more interesting, something more creatively invested in, is like, whew, that's brutal.
Yeah, that's like the worst thing that you could hear, because I see like video games as being just like a media art, and like these developers, artists, all these people that work on these projects, like they're making an art, and for them, like hoping that what they've been working on for the last 2 years just never sees the light of day and nobody can actually see it. Like that's probably the worst possible thing that you could actually hear. And it's just it blows my mind that like all of the internal concern just really got swept under the rug, and it's like, we don't care, we're releasing it. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that's so awful.
Yeah. So I mean, I think what we'll see for Redfall is they'll do the 60 frames patch because they've promised that, and I think they really need to get some good blood.
Forgot
there.
about that almost.
Yeah, that needs to get in there for sure. They will probably do some more bug fixing and stuff like that, and then they did. It's a pre-order bonus is 2 additional characters, so we'll definitely see those extra characters. I'm sure those characters are already pretty far along and hopefully ready to go, but. The game's been out for a month now, which is kind of crazy, but I guess I've been away for 3 weeks, so time went by pretty quickly in that way. But, like, there's not been a single peep as to when that's coming. I was hoping, hey, maybe 60 frames is going to come within a month. That would be great. But we haven't even heard a word of, like, a roadmap of what to expect. And I think it's best for everyone if they do this stuff as quickly as possible, get the 60 frames in there, some more bugs, get those characters out, and then, like, move on to something new. Because in terms of like this having like a No Man's Sky moment or a Cyberpunk moment, it's not going to happen. This game has too many fundamental issues. It's not really tech issues. You can go back to me and Dante's review where we talked about this exact thing at length. But I think that's the way to do it. And I'm excited to jump back in when it gets 60 frames. I'm excited to check out those new characters because, even after the review, I got to say, I went back and played like a bunch more. And like there is fun to be had there. It's dumb, like junk food kind of fun, but like I still have some good time with it. It's nowhere close to any other title that the studio has made before, but I think with 60 frames, maybe some new characters, and I don't know if there's any other content coming with those characters. Hopefully it's in like a decent place and people can revisit it. But I even saw an article that was that on Steam, Forspoken has more active players than Redfall does already, and that's fucking crazy because Forspoken was a total disaster as well, and I didn't think anyone still cared about it, but it's already or it's still more popular than a multiplayer game on Steam. So that's only one metric. It's a very specific place to target a metric, but it's still, to me, is notable.
Yeah, crazy.
Kirklin, I think that's pretty much it for the day. Anything else that you want to... Oh, I guess my last thing is if anyone wants to read this article, because like I said, it's paywalled, jump in the Discord and ask me, and I'll send you the link to it because you cannot read it otherwise. So there you go. Anything else from you, Kirkland?
Nope, that's it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we will be back once again. Are you joining Summer Game Fest Thursday, or is that me?
No,
and Travis moment?
I'm heading off into the wilderness Thursday.
Into the wilderness. Okay, I love that for you. Does that mean that you are not around for Xbox on Sunday?
I am not around for Xbox on Sunday.
All right. Well, I guess I'll talk to you in another 3 weeks from now. But yeah, we'll be back Thursday for Summer Game Fest, Sunday for Xbox, and then probably Monday for Ubisoft Capcom. If it's very uninteresting, that Ubisoft Capcom stuff, then who knows, we might push that a little bit. But look forward to that stuff at some point. Check the feeds, subscribe. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Good to be back. And, yeah, that's about it. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.